Welcome to Globally Growing, a podcast dedicated to spiritual growth and development. Each week, we will explore various topics that are relevant to today that also promote spiritual growth, conduct powerful interviews, inspire you to walk into your calling, and have fun doing so. From across the globe, we are growing, and we want you to grow too. Joining us now is your host, Sharon Williams.
Hi there, I'm Sharon Williams and welcome to Globally Growing. Before introducing you to our guest today, please allow me a moment to share with you a vision God gave me after my first missionary visit to South Africa back in 2002. That vision was to start Global Growth Ministries, which is a collection of ministries dedicated to providing systemic spiritual development. Its ministries include global evangelism, of which this podcast is just a small part, the South African Spiritual Development Project, which endeavors to strengthen the body of Christ in South Africa. There we launched a Christian library for people to dive deeper in their studies of the Word of God. Global Growth Publishing is our publishing arm dedicated to utilize any media available to distribute the good news globally. And our most recent addition to this multifaceted network of ministries is called Helping Hands. Helping Hands was originally birthed as a result of the economic crisis that the COVID-19 pandemic created. People globally have found themselves struggling like never before. Some who were once financially secure have found themselves struggling from food insecurities, while others who were already suffering from overwhelming poverty have found themselves falling into an even deeper pit of despair. At this point, I want to shift and look at things from Jesus' perspective. When Jesus heard about how Herod beheaded John the Baptist, he wanted to withdraw himself from his crowd of followers. But when the masses practically stalked Jesus and his disciples, they asked him to send him home to fend for themselves because it was already late in the day. Oh, by the way, you can find the accounts of this in Matthew chapter 14 and Mark chapter 6. Anyway, Jesus, moved with compassion, instructed them to feed the crowd instead. Now, I'm not sure if you know this story or not, but with just 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread, Jesus fed more than 5,000 people. It was a miraculous event. But anyway, that's not the point of the story. It's not the miracle that I want to focus on. I really want to focus on the fact that Jesus's focus was not on feeding people spiritually only. He understood clearly that when you can sustain a weary traveler, when you can show compassion on the hungry, when you are willing to help someone in need, you are demonstrating the love of God. Now, armed with Jesus' example of demonstrating love by not only preaching the gospel, but by also showing what God's love looks like and showing compassion on those who need it, we also want to provide a holistic approach to the gospel by extending a hand to people who need it the most through the ministry called Helping Hands. Now, I want to lay a little historical foundation. A couple of months after I moved to South Africa back in 2008, I was invited to live in a building located in a small town called Vanderbijl Park. Now, if I were to read that word here in America, I would pronounce it Vanderbijl Park, but it's actually pronounced Vanderbijl Park, and it's the home of the Vaal University of Technology. One side of the building housed people who seek a quiet place for fasting and prayer, while the other side was reserved for student accommodations, and that's where I was to reside. I moved in during the school break, and about a week after moving into my room, the VUT students began returning to town from break and moving into the building. In the room right next to me was this goofy, loud, and boisterous young child of God named Fiona. We clicked immediately. We shared the same passion for serving God in the beauty of holiness, and we both enjoyed our freedom to be our naturally wild and wacky selves. When she was available to accompany me to churches where I was invited to preach, she would happily join me to film the occasion. After the services, the clown show featuring us would ensue as we would return home. Unfortunately, a few months later, we both relocated, but we remained in contact over the years. I've watched this young college student graduate, get married, and start a beautiful family that I am thrilled to call my own. And while we've communicated consistently over the years, neither of us ever imagined that God had given us a shared vision. He then turned around and united us in ministry to start fulfilling that vision. I am thrilled to introduce to you my daughter in the gospel and the administrator of Global Growth Ministries Helping Hands program, Mrs. Fiona Nthoroane. Fiona, thank you so much for allowing me to drag you into this program, kicking and screaming.
Definitely. No, don't do this. But thank you so much for inviting me. I'm super excited. The goofy little me, of course.
Hey, yo, Goofy doesn't even begin to describe you. Mm, mm, mm. Yeah, oh, we go way back, hey?
Definitely, Mama. Way, way back.
Fiona, I like to start every episode introducing every guest with one simple question. Who in the world is Fiona Nthoroane? Tell me
Mm.
who you are.
Um, yes, goofy, clown, rooted so much in the Word of God. I thank the Lord that I was born in a Christian family. I am currently a mother of three, and one decided to go see God. She's like, Mama, I love you, but I'm going to see God right now. So she's sitting in the bosom of Abraham. Hey. So I do have two beautiful kids, my daughter and my son, and I am so in love with people that the love of Christ is within me, and I really love to look at everybody and see Christ in them.
And I do have to say, you said something that describes you really beautiful, how you are so in love with people. One of the things that I observed about you early on in my encounter with you is that love of people, how it manifests in the servant spirit that you wear like a glove. And I remember times having to chastise you at times where you would be taken advantage of. And I'm bringing this up. I know this might not be the most appropriate time, but I'm still going to bring it up. I mean, there are some times where, yes, you are to serve, but then there are some times where God is intending to teach someone a lesson. So you have to use wisdom at when you serve a person, as opposed to when God is saying, okay, it's time not to serve this particular person at this particular season. So you were young at that time and still learning, and you were just wanting to serve everybody at every time. And
Okay.
but God has given you the grace, I hope, to wheel it in. But the other day you were telling me about the little old lady whose crusty feet you were
Oh,
uh,
I was
sanding down with the sandpaper.
Mom.
So
She was
she's,
so surprised, like, what is this little girl doing? And then I was
yeah.
sitting on my literally on the ground, and I was massaging this woman. But
and 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 mind you, you're in South Africa on a dirt ground, not a
yeah,
paved
yeah.
ground,
I was on the dirt.
literally at the foot of your elders, showing people what it means to honor your parents and honor your elders. And that actually speaks volumes, because we're in a society today where young people, this generation isn't being taught that. So I love that example that you set. But let's shift back to the reason for this interview, because you and I can carry on forever,
Ever.
um, and ever. Um,
Mhm.
so we connected. We've stayed in communication over the years, but one of the things that I found interesting was how our visions ended up colliding, because we've always had this mother-daughter relationship from day one, essentially. And it's just been a beautiful relationship that I've just I'm humbled and honored to have. But what strikes me as interesting is how it's just been in what 6 months has it been? It has it even been 6 months that the
Is it?
revelation.
No, yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it was around March that we started, March or
And I
April. Yeah.
and I remember you called me. You called me. Hey, mama, I was just thinking about you, which you rarely do. Usually, it's always me having to initiate the the video chat. And you were just thinking about me, and I began to share about the first client that we had, and this client was actually in Zimbabwe,
Yes.
and I actually was in need of assistance with this client, and I reached out to you as we were talking, and you hadn't even shared with me what was in your heart
Mm,
at
mm.
the time.
I do remember that when you mentioned that you were finding you were having a challenge that he wasn't stepping up to the plate, and you really wanted to for me to get into it and understand him and see where I can help and assist him into finding himself and rooting himself on the ground and saying, this is my future, this is where I'm going. And definitely I did not say I hadn't said anything on what I was doing up until I realized that, you know what you're doing is plus or minus the same thing as I was doing at that point.
Yeah, because the issue was it was a cultural issue because even though he's in Zimbabwe, the cultures and he lived in South Africa, which is how I had already known him. The cultures are much more similar than the American culture. So just in case I was missing something, I figured we needed someone that was closer culturally to the situation.
and and also for him to see that it's really not about you, it's more about him, that he shouldn't be saying, oh, you're from United States of America or anything like that, but to understand that he is a spiritual being, and the moment he sees himself as a spiritual being and removing all the cultural strongholds that pulls us down, and understand that this is who I am in Christ, finding that identity in Christ, that's more important. And yes, it needed to come from a person who comes from that type of cultural growth. And just talking to him, for him it sounded, it sank better. it sank in
Yeah.
it sank in better. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and that's where it started.
Yeah.
But at the same time that I asked you to get involved with him is where you began to share with me what you had started doing because when reached out to me, it was all because of COVID.
Yes. Okay.
And there was already extreme poverty
Mm.
throughout the continent of Africa. And I mean, there's been extreme poverty everywhere. I mean, that is what it is.
Mm.
However, COVID really put a spotlight on things. And in your case, you're living in a township. It's a township of Vanderbijl Park, correct?
Yes. Yes.
And you're working at a bank.
Yes.
And you were sharing how when COVID hit, because you were an essential worker, you were one of the few in your township that was able to continue to work. And because you're in a township, you're primarily living around mostly
Yes.
domestic workers, correct?
That's correct. So it hit so hard that when I looked at my neighbors, they were not going to work. They were not making any money. They were struggling just to put food on the table. And so I approached some of my coworkers to say, guys, this is what's happening in my community. This is what's happening to the people that I live with. Could you please help and assist them? And I remember it started off with 5 families. The first month, that was in March, that was in April, because our lockdown, our full lockdown on no movement. The only thing that you're going to do is essential stuff that you're getting from the malls or anything like that. There was hardly any movement anyway. So that was in March when it started. By April, that's when I started buying the stuff. And I think I bought for only the first month, I think, yes, it was for 5 families. And then the following month, which was now in May.
So wait a minute, just to clarify, you on your own decided to purchase enough food to feed 5 families for a month.
Yes.
Okay.
So beyond my own, I was like, you know what? No. That was the first month I did it with colleagues.
Okay.
I think there were about 3 colleagues that gave me money. And from those 3, there was like 200 rand here and there. And in the end, I bought like this food parcels that I got for the families. That happened in April. In May, it went from 5 families to, I think we did 10 families at this point. And this time, some families approached me. They were like, okay, we heard that you are assisting. I was like, of course, anybody's welcome. I mean, if I can help, if I can assist, I'll do it. And so a couple more families approached me, and that was in May. So the unfortunate part is on the 1st of June, the lockdown sort of eased. We went to a lower restriction level, wherein some people were allowed to go back to work, but it didn't mean that everybody went to work. It didn't mean that people was not in trouble anymore. So the co-workers that were helping me stopped. They were like, no, these people are supposed to be going back to work, so we can't assist you anymore. And now comes June, the people are still like, where's the fish? Where's the bread? Where's the 2 fish and the, and the I was like, okay, I still need to cut these loaves and this fish into pieces and still help these people. So that was in June, and we helped 13 families, my husband and I.
Wow.
And
so at that point, you picked up the families on your own?
On my own. On this time, it was on my own. We had to really look at our budget and say, okay, fine, this is what will help. And 13 families, I remember took videos of them, and they were just so amazed. They were so amazed and like thankful. The good thing was the following month, most of them had gone back to work. And that's when I started with one person to say, I'm not going to give you fish and bread anymore. I'm now giving you a fishing line. I'm now giving you bait. I'm now giving you the hand to help yourself. And so I started with, and this is before we even started talking about Owen. I then spoke to my next door neighbor. She approached me. I also gave her some food some food parcels before. So she approached me. She said, this is her passion. She loves food. She loves catering. She loves cooking. And I said, how can I help? Here am I. This is what I have. Silver and gold I cannot give you. Such as I have, I shall give unto you. And so
actually, you did give her some silver and some gold.
Yeah, I gave her some silver and gold, but yeah, it helped her to fish. And so we sat down, we looked at what she needed. I actually have a contract with her to say, let's write it down, put it down, let me see it, write it down. The book of Habakkuk says, write down your dreams, because the moment you take it out of your mind, out of your dreams and out of your aspirations, put it down and see it, it's more workable than not. And so
you had her write down everything that she needed to actually start this vision of hers, which was to start a barbecue stand, or a braai stand, as you call it.
Yes.
In South Africa.
So she didn't have anything. She had absolutely nothing except for her hard work. And I was like, whatever you need, I'll give you. So I have a braai stand. I had brushes. I had those tongs and whatnot. So those type of stuff I gave her.
For the American listeners, the braai stand is the barbecue pit. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Sorry. Hey.
Just a little interpretation, just so that people.
Ebonics.
Oh, that's not Ebonics. I'll introduce the Ebonics when necessary. Anyway, go ahead. Continue.
Oh, my bad. In any case, we went out. She bought everything, the meat, the spices, the whatever she needed, and she started. And so at that point, she asked for 700 rand. And I gave her 700 rand. There was change that came back. I was like, I gave you 700 rand. Let's take it from there. The first weekend she worked, Mama, she made 800 rand.
Okay, and to put this into perspective, now, today it's different. But then, well, let's just say 10 to 1, the exchange rate, which I know it's not that, but we're talking $70 $50 maybe, $60 is all that it took to get this lady started. Okay, so 70 Rand is all 700 Rand is what it took to get her started. And in a week, she literally
Made
made
100% of it, 105%.
110%, 105%.
Yeah, practically, basically. And I was super excited. I was excited for her. And she carried on working, and I said, I can't just stop on her. I mean, she approached me and I was able to help her. I cannot stop on her. There's other colleagues, I mean, other neighbors out here that are not working, that never worked, but have a passion, and they are sitting on their talents. And it's not fair that when God has given us these talents and say, hey, what you gonna do? And here we are sitting on top of them with our hands over here and going, God gave me this, I'm gonna protect it with everything I got. He's gonna take it away. So I said to myself, let me help these people, whatever they need, whatever passion they have, let's see what I can do.
That was where it started. It was exciting to begin to open the doors for the next beneficiary, which we do have, who we're working with now. Tell us a little bit about our next client.
Our next client is Dina Rantimo. She is my neighbor. She is my baby girl, my sister. I've known her since 2009, if I'm not mistaken. She was still in high school or primary, I don't know. Yeah. But she was still in school when I met her. She's at that point, she was my sister-in-law's neighbor. And I would come visit my sister-in-law. And whenever we would have events at my sister-in-law's place, Dinah would come and cook for us. She's the one who would come and clean for us. She's the one that was there. So I know her cooking. I know her passion. And now comes this moment wherein she completed school. And unfortunately, due to circumstances, she was unable to continue with her studies. When I say completed school, I mean high school. She was unable to continue. And fortunately, I say because it's a blessing, she has a daughter who she has to take care of. And the only money or income that she's getting is definitely coming from the grant, which we get via the government grants. And she approached me that she's always talking to me. She's always saying, what can I do? And I always minister to her like, baby girl, find it in your heart, find it in your spirit, find it where you're going. And when she brought this up to say, I want to start a catering company, I'm like, you really want to start a company? And with the wording she was putting it, the way she was putting it, I was like, here's our next beneficiary right here. So I looked more into her as the next person to assist. And the more we spoke to her, the more it showed that she's not just only going to do it for herself, but to pay forward the way ahead for other people, because she was starting to talk about hiring other people within the business that she's going to build. And I loved that about her. I really love her. She's awesome. And even before all of this, we would pray together, praying for her studying, carrying on with her study. She would come and we would pray and be intense in it. And she's just a lovely sweetheart.
And I have to say that's actually an integral part of the Helping Hands program that we really emphasize is the spiritual piece. So, you don't have to be a believer to be a part of the Helping Hands program, but one of the requirements is that you allow us to minister to you spiritually as well. So our prayer is that you become a believer by the time you finish the program. And if you noticed, it is a young program. These are two of the clients that we have so far. We have a list of people that we actually have in queue that we're processing. We're excited because we've just issued the funds to actually get Dinah underway. So within the next couple of weeks, we've got her budget that we're getting set up. So her program, I think within the next 3 months, she should be a graduate and fully economically viable. I guess that's a good way to put it. And in the meantime, we've got a couple of other really, really cool programs that we're working on as well. You want to talk about those?
Definitely. We do have ideas such as car wash, because a car wash literally just needs someone. Doesn't matter if it's a lady or a guy, but unfortunately where I stay, it's more of the guys that are doing it, but anybody can do it as soon as they present themselves to say, I would love to do a car wash. We do have ideas like that. The next one that we were thinking is the cleaning services. um, Currently here in South Africa, I'm not sure if it happens that side, is a person can say, could you please come clean my house and I'll pay you for the work that you did. That person doesn't have to be contracted there to work for a month or so. They can just come in for a day. So that's what we're thinking on doing, to say we have so many people here within the cleaning services, which are people that we're going to be assisting within Helping Hands. And then they will be going out into different houses and cleaning for them. We also have what else do we have, Mama?
Okay. So the Helping Hands cleaning services, what we would do is we would provide like the cleaning supplies, the uniforms, and then we would look for people. We would vet the people who are in need of cleaning services, and then that will give them some income, and at the same time
Yeah.
the owners or of the homeowners or whomever won't have to worry about, oh, are they going to rob me blind or whatever, because of course we're vetting them, we're ministering to them, and we're actually laying a solid foundation. And the same with the car wash, we would provide them with the cleaning supplies that they would need, and empower them. We would equip them with whatever they would have. So I'm going to be meeting literally with Fiona after this, because there's also another couple that has an initiative that we're also looking into partnering with to actually extend the program even further, that I think is going to rock Fiona's boat. However, Fiona has a much, much bigger vision that I really want to discuss really quickly. She submitted a letter to Mfuleni. Mfuleni is the municipality that she lives in. Talk about that vision that you have that we're praying about. And I'm asking this because you, the listener who knows the word of prayer, we're asking you, we solicit your prayers regarding this, because this vision is huge. And I believe that this would really, really break open some doors. I want you to talk about that and what we're looking into regarding this whole NGO thing. Go ahead.
Um, it's such a big thing because it's so dear to my heart, and I pray that all doors will open for this one. So, like you mentioned, I stay in a township where there were shacks that were placed at a specific area, and all of those shacks were removed. The people that stayed there were moved to a different area where in the government is now assisting them with housing. And now I said, now what with that land? What's going to happen to that land? So I approached the municipality in Fuleni, and I spoke to the person who deals with property. And the idea is to have a garden that would be managed by the people in Bupilong, where I stay, and just to give back to the people, because the government is already assisting them with grants. These are the people that are not working. So once they start tilling the land for themselves and making sure that this land feeds them, I believe that this is also assisting Mfuleni in a way, and yet also assisting the families that don't have what they're supposed to be putting on the table. So I feel like it's a great business venture, and that would sustain the community. And also not just the garden, because it's a huge area. I was also thinking on having stalls where all of these different people that maybe one would be having a barbecue there, the other person will be selling art, maybe displaying their art at a store. That area is so huge that I feel like anybody who has any talent, who has any aspiration, who has any dream, can use that area. And all that we are asking from Influence is just, it's the land for the people. Just help us, give us the land, and we'll use it. Nothing else from Influence. That's the letter that I sent to Influence.
And that would really really be huge. And the other thing that we're doing is we're trying to we're actually working on setting up an NGO there for Global Growth Ministries South Africa branch of specifically for helping hands, so that people who want to be able to give tax-free contributions will be able to do so out there as well as here. But speaking of which, I want to talk to you quickly, Fiona. So if people want to donate, if a business wants to donate cleaning supplies, or if they want to donate items, how can they do so? How do you recommend that they do so?
So on the Global Growth Ministry site, I believe that they can go onto the site and pledge what they want to give, or donate what they want to give.
Now that's
So
a financial contribution, yes.
that's a financial contribution. And then on the side, I mean, holler at me. Holler
Okay.
at me. And once the NGO is set up, definitely the NGO is the one that's going to be receiving all of those different resources. So yeah, that's yet to be set up. And once it's set up, the communication will be sent out to everybody that really wants to give.
Okay, so the Global Growth website is globalgrowthministries.org. It will be in the show notes as well. You can also, if you would like to send an email, you can send an email to info@globalgrowthministries.org. Now, even if some people are not concerned about a tax write-off, so please feel free to send a pledge to globalgrowthministries.org. Now, we would love for you to send a pledge. And if you do, please consider, when you make a pledge, just put HH in the instructions, or helping hands in the instructions, so that we can appropriately allocate those funds to the Helping Hands program. As you can see with some of the clients, it won't take a lot to support some of the clients. Other clients, it might take more. We have one client in particular who is in queue, I guess we can say, who yeah, Josie, who I think hers is the catering business, where we would have to actually build her a shack.
Yes.
And so with her, we would actually need quite a bit more funds.
Unlike Dina, who already has certain stuff like the stove and stuff like that, who we don't need to purchase that. Kosi, on the other hand, doesn't have such resource. She doesn't have the stove. She doesn't have the deep fryer. She doesn't have the actual shack or room or whatever, where she can sell what we call skambani.
Yeah, skambani. Oh, by the way, I'm a keto now, so I can't eat skambani anymore. Skambani, for those who don't know what skambani is, and well, where I lived for 4 years of my life, it's called spashu, and spashu or skambani is like a quarter loaf of bread, which is a whole lot of bread. If you can picture a literal quarter of a loaf of bread, you scoop out the middle and you throw a whole bunch of gunk in it. French fries and bologna and cheese and eggs and it's greasy. It's actually quite tasty. Yeah, they don't call them Russians here, but if you can think of stuff like smoked sausages, just any and every kind of meat and stuff you can imagine, you just pack into there, and then you.
Oh my goodness! You know what I just thought of now? You know, I'm like, you're putting Russians in there, like Russians, like
they're eating people.
Eating people. Oh my
They're
goodness, just
disgusting. They're cannibals out there. Yeah, so
massive.
but they're very, very popular and they're quite inexpensive for people to buy. So they're very, it's actually a pretty lucrative business out there, especially in the
Yeah.
townships. Funny Scambani story, when I first moved out there and someone offered to buy me Scambani. I wasn't used to the accent and I couldn't understand what she was saying. And I kept asking her, and she kept dropping the tail end of the word. And then finally, she went out and she purchased whatever I thought she said. And then I kept asking her, what did she say again? And I heard what I thought I heard. And so I tasted it. I was like, this is some pretty good scumbag. Because that's what I heard, the scumbag.
Oh no.
So that's when they decided to enunciate and say, scumbani.
Come on, please come back. Oh my goodness, that's funny.
Anyway.
You're forgiven, Mama.
Thank you, baby. Thank you. See, she's so forgiving. I thank you so much, Fiona, for your time. I do appreciate you. I appreciate all you do. I thank you so much for always, always walking with the servant spirit. You have been such a blessing to so many people. And I love you so much. And I thank you again for taking the time to come out on this and showing up for me, not only for this podcast, but showing up for me every time I ever need you. You always do whatever you can to represent. And once again, I want to thank you for tuning in to Globally Growing. So until next week, let's keep on growing together. And God bless you.
And now, a quick word from our sponsor.
Globally Growing is brought to you by Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. And let me explain. First of all, it's free, and that's a price point you can't beat with a stick. Plus, they have these creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Thanks for tuning in to Globally Growing. If you've enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. If you'd like to learn more about Globally Growing, please visit us at globallygrowing.one. Again, that's globallygrowing.one. Until next time, never, ever, ever stop growing.